My husband sold our home, our life, and our future while I was fighting for my country in a Syrian desert. And I found out through a single WhatsApp message. I'm Meliora Carter, 38 years old, a Navy SEAL lieutenant, 5 months into a punishing deployment at a wind-scoured outpost outside Aleppo. 10 years ago, I married Raymond, a freelance journalist whose hunger for stories took him to corners of the world as dangerous as the ones I patrolled. We carved out a life in a modest beachside house in San Diego. Bought with a VA loan, a haven I thought was safe, a place to anchor me after years of dodging bullets and IEDs. That night, as the desert wind clawed at the canvas of my tent, my phone glowed with his message. No warmth, just a sterile line, "We need to talk. I've filed for divorce." Attached was a PDF, divorce papers stamped by the San Diego court. I opened our banking app, my hands steady despite the dread pooling in my chest. Our joint account, $120,000 we'd scraped together over a decade, was gutted, down to $47.32. Raymond had drained it. He'd also sold my Jeep Wrangler, the one I bought with my first deployment bonus, a piece of freedom I'd fought for. In the message, he confessed he was living with Wendy, a photographer he'd met on a journalism project in Seattle. I sat on my bunk, the fluorescent light flickering like a dying star above me. The words hit like a sniper's round, precise, lethal, but I didn't let myself break. I read the message again, then a fourth time, each syllable cutting deeper, like a blade twisting in a wound. Instead of replying, I opened my laptop and logged into our home security system, cameras Raymond didn't know I could access from 7,000 miles away. The feed loaded, grainy but sharp. Wendy, a lean woman with a hawkish jaw and a smug grin, sprawled on my couch, wearing my grandfather's Omega watch, the one Dad gave me before his heart gave out in 2013. She sipped coffee from my favorite mug, its faded seal trident catching the light. Raymond stood in the kitchen, laughing, stirring a pot on the stove I'd installed during my last leave, my calloused hands still remembering the weight of the wrench. 10 years of marriage, erased in a single frame. I typed one word back, understood. Then I closed the laptop, showered in the communal stall, the water too hot but not hot enough to burn away the betrayal, and suited up for my next patrol. I didn't say a word to anyone. Seals don't crumble, we plan. That night, back in my bunk, the generators hum a constant drone outside. I checked my bank emails. My instincts, sharpened by years in hostile zones, screamed that this wasn't just a personal stab in the back. A notification stopped me cold, a second mortgage on our house, for $100,000, signed with my name. I hadn't signed a thing. The signature on the PDF was close, eerily close, but the M was wrong, missing the sharp, deliberate loop I always added. Raymond had forged it. This wasn't just a divorce, it was a heist, calculated and cold. My gut, which had saved me from ambushes and booby traps, told me this was bigger than Raymond's wandering heart or his new girlfriend. I'd seen setups in war zones, insurgents posing as civilians, deals gone sour in dusty markets. This reeked of the same kind of deceit. 6 months before I deployed, the signs had crept in like a sandstorm on the horizon. Raymond stopped asking about my missions, his curiosity replaced by vague excuses about late-night assignments or networking events with his journalism crowd. He changed his phone password, started wearing tailored jackets and a cologne that smelled like wealth we didn't have. He talked about needing more from life, his words edged with a restlessness I couldn't soothe. I didn't confront him, not my style. My father, a Marine who survived Kisan, taught me one rule above all: observe, prepare, act only when you're certain. So I prepared, quietly, methodically. I moved critical documents, birth certificate, marriage license, house deed, VA loan papers, to a storage unit in Oceanside, locked behind a combination only I knew. I opened a separate account at a credit union, diverting $1,000 a month from my pay, small enough to slip under Raymond's radar, enough to be a lifeline if the worst came. The night before I shipped out, he hugged me at the airport, his arms loose, his eyes dry, like he was sending off a coworker. "Stay safe," he said, his voice flat, rehearsed. I'd hoped I was wrong, that I was seeing shadows where there were none. I wasn't. I thought back to how we'd met at a beach bonfire in 2012, the Pacific air thick with salt and smoke. Raymond was covering a surf competition for a San Diego magazine, his charm and quick wit pulling me in like a riptide. His eyes caught the firelight, and I was hooked. We married 8 months later, too fast, maybe, but I was young, smitten, and believed love could weather any storm. He said he admired my service, though he never truly understood it. His dad was an accountant, his sister a high school teacher, no military in their blood. He'd ask, half joking, when I'd get a real job, not grasping that the SEALs were my calling, not a phase. We bought the San Diego house in 2015, a fixer-upper with creaky floors and a view of the Pacific that made every late-night repair worth it. I put my name on the VA loan, but added Raymond to the deed because that's what you do when you trust someone with your soul. My parents died too soon, dad from a stroke in 2013, mom from breast cancer in 2016. They left me enough to clear our debts and seed a savings account, the one Raymond later gutted without a second thought. Each deployment, 3 in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, widened the chasm between us. Raymond grew restless, his complaints sharper with every tour. I didn't sign up to be a military spouse, he said once, his voice bitter, after I mentioned re-upping for another 4 years. I understood his loneliness, the weight of months alone, but the SEALs were where I belonged, where my team needed me, where I could make a difference. By 2019, the cracks were glaring. Raymond started working late, disappearing for weekend trips with friends I'd never met. He bought new clothes, signed up for a gym membership he barely used, and locked his phone with a passcode I didn't know. I suggested counseling, my voice calm, hoping to bridge the gap. He brushed it off, said we were fine, just going through a phase. I didn't push. I watched, planned, and trusted my instincts, the same ones that had guided me through firefights and midnight raids. Back in Syria, I contacted Riley, a former SEAL teammate turned private investigator in San Diego. Over a secure satellite link, I sent him Wendy's name and the scraps of intel I had. Riley called back within hours, his voice low, urgent. Wendy Reed, 34, is bad news, Meliora. She's got a history of financial fraud, 2 dismissed cases in Oregon for identity theft. She's linked to a crew targeting military families, exploiting VA loans to siphon off assets. Raymond might be a pawn, or he's neck deep in it. I told Riley to dig into the $400,000 mortgage, to follow the money wherever it led. If Raymond was part of this, I needed hard proof, not shadows. While waiting, I used a skill from SEAL cyber training to crack Raymond's email. His new password was predictable, his birthday, plus the year we met. Sloppy, even for him. In his inbox, I found a thread with Vanessa Klein, a real estate lawyer based in La Jolla. They were planning to sell our house for $450,000, a $200,000 haircut from its market value. One email mentioned transferring $200,000 from the forged mortgage to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Raymond wrote, Wendy says we need to move before Mel gets back. She's got a buyer lined up, cash deal. My jaw tightened, but I stayed calm. Anger was a luxury I couldn't afford, strategy was my weapon. I reached out to Special Agent Harper, an FBI contact I'd worked with on counterterrorism ops in Yemen. Over a secure line, I sent her the evidence, bank notifications, security footage, email threads. Harper's response came fast, this looks like part of a larger operation. I'm looping in our financial crimes unit. Meanwhile, Raymond requested a video call, pushing me to sign the divorce papers online. I played dumb, keeping him talking, my phone recording every word. We can make this clean, Mel, he said, his voice too polished, like he'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror. Wendy says we sell the house, split the money, start fresh. He slipped, once the house is sold, we're set for Europe. I ended the call, my pulse steady, and sent the recording to Harper. 2 weeks later, Harper called back, her tone clipped. You've kicked over a hornet's nest, Carter. Wendy and Vanessa are tied to a syndicate operating across California, Nevada, Oregon, and Arizona. They've defrauded 20 military families, pocketing over $5 million by exploiting VA loans and forged signatures. Your house is their latest target. I requested emergency leave and flew back to San Diego without telling Raymond. I checked into a budget motel under a false name, blending into the city with a baseball cap and sunglasses. I started tailing Wendy, who drove a black Audi, too flashy for a freelance photographer. She met Vanessa at upscale cafes, always paying in cash, their conversations hushed but confident. I shadowed them for 3 days, mapping their routines, my SEAL instincts guiding every move. One night, I broke into Vanessa's office in La Jolla, a sleek glass building with a view of the Pacific. Using a lockpick from my SEAL kit, I slipped inside, my heart steady despite the risk. The office was dark, the only light coming from the glow of a computer screen left on standby. In a locked drawer, I found a file that made my blood run cold, a list of 15 military families, complete with addresses, deployment schedules, and notes on their assets. My name was at the top, circled in red ink with VA loan, for $100,000 equity scrawled next to it. Other families were listed below, Marines, soldiers, sailors, all deployed, all vulnerable. I photographed every page, my hands shaking not from fear but from the weight of what I'd uncovered. I sent the files to Harper and slipped out, the ocean's roar covering my exit as I melted back into the night. Back at the motel, I reviewed the security footage from home. Wendy and Vanessa were moving fast, meeting a guy named Dominic, who Riley identified as the syndicate's ringleader. Dominic had a rap sheet, money laundering, wire fraud, and a knack for disappearing when things got hot. I needed undeniable evidence, something to bury them all. On my second break-in, I planted a tracking device on Vanessa's laptop, a tiny gadget I'd used in covert ops. It recorded audio and keystrokes, syncing to my phone in real time. 2 days later, it delivered. Vanessa and Dominic met in her office, their voices clear through the device. "Carter's house lists next week," Vanessa said. "We'll take $450,000, buyers ready with cash. Raymond gets 10% for bringing Wendy in." Dominic chuckled, his voice dripping with contempt. "Military guys are easy marks. Too busy saving the world to notice their world's being sold." I forwarded the recording to Harper, my blood ice cold but my focus sharper than a K-bar blade. Then the plan hit a snag. Wendy spotted me tailing her outside a downtown bar, her eyes locking onto mine through the crowd. She bolted to Raymond's car, a silver BMW, and tore out of the parking lot. I gave chase in a rented pickup, weaving through San Diego's neon-lit streets, my SEAL training taking over. She tried to lose me in an alley near Gaslab Quarter, tires screeching as she swerved through narrow turns. I anticipated her move, cutting her off with a sharp turn, forcing her to slam on the brakes. She stumbled out, hands raised, eyes wild with panic. "Raymond's in on it," she screamed. "He wanted the money to ditch you. It was his idea." I didn't bite, just zip-tied her wrists and called Harper. The cops arrived minutes later, their lights painting the alley red and blue, radios crackling as they took her into custody. The FBI raided Vanessa's office at dawn. I watched from a block away, hidden behind a newspaper stand, as agents swarmed, hauling out boxes of documents, laptops, and files. Wendy and Vanessa were led out in cuffs, their faces drained of color, their confidence shattered. Raymond was brought in for questioning that afternoon. Through a one-way mirror at the FBI field office, I watched him crumble, sobbing that Wendy had manipulated him, that he'd only wanted freedom from the military life. But he admitted forging my signature and agreeing to sell the house. "I didn't know it was this big," he said, his voice breaking, his hands trembling as he wiped tears from his face. I stood there, arms crossed, feeling a storm of emotions, rage, betrayal, and a flicker of pity. I'd loved him once, imagined us growing old by the ocean, sharing quiet evenings watching the waves roll in. Now, he was a stranger, a shadow of the man I'd married, reduced to a sniveling figure in a sterile room. The case moved like wildfire. Wendy took a plea deal, spilling details on the syndicate to shave time off her 10-year sentence for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Vanessa, the mastermind, got 15 years for orchestrating the scheme, her law license revoked and her empire of deceit collapsed. Raymond faced lighter consequences: probation, $150,000 in restitution, and 500 hours of community service. I could have pushed for jail time, but I didn't. I wanted him gone, not caged, a ghost I could leave behind. The divorce finalized 3 months later, clean and no fault. I kept the house, my military pension, and every personal asset, including my grandfather's watch, recovered from Wendy's apartment, still ticking as if it knew the fight wasn't over. I couldn't stay in the San Diego house. The memories of Raymond's laughter, our late-night talks by the fireplace, the life we'd planned, were too heavy, like ghosts lingering in every room, whispering of what could have been. I sold it for $670,000, more than enough to start fresh. With the money, I bought a 15-acre ranch in Colorado, a 2-bedroom cabin nestled against a creek, the Rockies looming like silent sentinels in the distance. I retired early after 18 years as a SEAL, my body and soul worn thin by war and betrayal. I took a job training local special forces units, passing on the skills that had kept me alive through countless missions: room clearing, evasive driving, situational awareness. I adopted Bravo, a golden Labrador rescue with a missing ear and a heart bigger than the mountains. He followed me everywhere, his paws kicking up dust as we roamed the ranch, his eager barks pulling me out of the darker moments when the past crept too close. Life in Colorado found a rhythm, a quiet cadence I hadn't known since my first days as a SEAL. Mornings were for training SWAT teams and sheriff's deputies, teaching them how to move, think, and survive in high-stakes scenarios. I'd stand in the training yard, my voice steady as I walked them through breaching techniques, my mind half in Syria, half in San Diego, but always anchored by the task at hand. Afternoons were for the memoir, a project I'd started as a way to process the chaos: Raymond's betrayal, Wendy's greed, the families caught in their web. I wrote in a small office I'd built off the cabin, a desk by the window overlooking the creek, Bravo sprawled at my feet, snoring softly. Each chapter was a step toward making sense of it all, a way to reclaim the narrative of my life. One afternoon, as I chopped wood outside the cabin, the axe's steady rhythm grounding me, my phone pinged with an email from a publisher in Denver. They'd read a draft chapter I'd sent on a whim, a raw account of that desert night when Raymond's message shattered my world. They wanted the full book, offering a contract with a release date the following spring. I stared at the email, the axe forgotten in my hand, half expecting the words to vanish like so much else had. But they stayed, solid and real, a promise of something new. A week later, a letter arrived from a Navy sailor in Norfolk, Virginia. His wife wrote, "Your case saved our home. We were targeted by the same group, but the FBI stopped them because of you. Thank you for fighting when it would have been easier to walk away." I pinned the letter to my fridge, next to a photo of Bravo chasing a squirrel across the creek, his tongue lolling in pure joy. The FBI later told me my evidence, those emails, recordings, and stolen files, helped recover assets for 22 military families, with over $3 million returned to people who'd been blindsided like I was. I hadn't set out to be their savior, I just wanted my life back, my home, my dignity. But sometimes, the fight you start for yourself ends up saving others. More letters came, a steady trickle that grew into a stack, from a Marine's wife in Camp Lejeune, a soldier's husband in Fort Bragg, a sailor's partner in Pearl Harbor. "You gave us hope," one read. "You showed us we could fight back." I kept them all, pinned to a corkboard above my desk, a constellation of gratitude that reminded me something good had come from the wreckage. The syndicate's collapse made national news, splashed across CNN, Fox, and local papers from San Diego to Seattle. Dominic, the ringleader, was arrested in a Las Vegas casino, caught trying to board a private jet to Mexico with a suitcase stuffed with $200,000 in cash and a fake passport. Harper called to update me, "You broke this wide open, Carter. Those families owe you, whether they know it or not." I didn't feel like a hero, just a man who'd done what he had to, who'd refused to let his life be stolen without a fight. Raymond sent a text a month after the divorce, his words tentative, almost fragile. "I never meant for it to go this far. I'm sorry." I read it, let it sit for a moment, then deleted it. There was nothing left to say, no bridge left to cross. In Colorado, the ranch became my sanctuary, a place where the world's noise couldn't reach me. I spent mornings training local SWAT teams, my voice carrying across the training yard as I drilled them on breaching techniques, my mind half in the past but anchored by the task. Afternoons were for the memoir, the words flowing easier as the months passed, each chapter a brick in the foundation of a new life. Bravo kept me grounded, his relentless energy and unwavering loyalty a reminder that some bonds don't break. I rebuilt the cabin's porch myself, the rhythm of hammer and nails a meditation, a way to reclaim something tangible after so much had been stolen. Neighbors, ranchers, retirees, a few off-grid hippies started hiring me for carpentry work, fences, barns, decks. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept my hands busy and paid for Bravo's endless supply of tennis balls and rawhide shoes. One evening, 6 months after the divorce, Harper called with an update. "Dominic's trial wrapped up," she said. 7 years, plus full restitution. "The syndicate's done, Carter. You should know, Raymond's back in Seattle, working at a coffee shop, trying to piece his life together." I nodded, though she couldn't see me, the phone pressed to my ear as I watched Bravo chase a rabbit across the field, his silhouette a blur against the fading light. "Thanks for the heads up," I said, my voice steady. I didn't ask about Raymond. He was a closed book, a chapter I'd burned. The memoir took shape over the next year, each chapter a piece of the puzzle: betrayal, survival, redemption. I wrote about that desert night when Raymond's message shattered my world, the chase through San Diego streets, the families who got their homes back because I refused to fold. The publisher set a release date for the following spring, sending me mock-ups of the cover, a silhouette of a seal against a desert horizon, the title bold, The Soldier's Gambit. I didn't expect it to change the world, but it was mine, a story carved from pain, grit, and the stubborn refusal to give up. The letters kept coming, a steady stream that filled a drawer in my desk, from a widow in Quantico, a young couple in Fort Hood, a retired colonel in Pensacola. "Your story gave us strength," one read. I didn't reply, but I kept them, each one a reminder that the fight had been worth it. Sitting on the porch, the Rockies glowing red under the sunset, I took a sip of beer. Bravo sprawled at my feet, his eyes shining with unwavering loyalty. From that Syrian desert night when Raymond's message shattered my world, I fought to reclaim everything, not just for me, but for 22 other military families. Life doesn't promise fairness, but you can choose to stand and fight. What will you do when everything falls apart? Share your thoughts in the comments below, hit like if this story moved you, and subscribe to catch more inspiring journeys. Your support fuels me to share more meaningful stories. Thank you for being here. Let's build a stronger community together.